In this channel, I usually speak about the best graphics card and PC components that you can buy for your money. But which ones should you avoid in 2025? Well, the 5 graphics cards that I will mention today, in my opinion, the worst buying decisions that you can make right now if you want a graphics card that's good in terms of price to performance. However, to help you make the right decision, I will also mention the better graphics card alternatives in today's video, and I will link them down in the video description with the latest prices and availability in your region. My name is Valentino. That being said, let's start. At my number 5, we have the RX 7600 non-XT. Now, this graphics card is not going to be the worst one out there, and that's why it's at my number 5. However, right now, the cheapest goes for $250, and honestly, there's nothing special about this GPU. It's an 8 gigs of VRAM graphics card that performs okay. I mean, for 1080p, it's a pretty good graphics card. However, once again, it has 8 gigs of VRAM, which is not ideal, and it's basically the same graphics card as last generation's RX 6650 XT, which goes for $235 USD. The only difference is that the 7600 has AV1 encoding, so if you really need that AV1 encoder for streaming, for example, then it makes sense to go with the 7600 instead of the 6650 XT. But if you're looking for a good value gaming graphics card, I mean, the 6650 XT is a better option, or if you want, you can go with the RTX 3060 12GB version, which has 12 gigs of VRAM, which is going to be much better. And on top of that, you get DLSS, which is the better upscaler. So if you will be turning FSR on, then it is much better to have DLSS because the image quality and level of performance is just going to be better. Now, the 3060 12GB version is $25 more expensive, and in terms of rasterized performance, is a bit slower than the 7600. So you can also consider the RTX 4060 instead, which is a bit more expensive, going for $300 USD at the moment, around that actually, but it's going to perform the same as the 7600, and it has all the NVIDIA technologies. Or if you can find the Intel Arc B580 in stock, that one is going to be the best one in terms of price to performance for $250 USD, so the same price as the 7600, and will provide better gaming performance with more VRAM. So as you can see, the 7600 has nothing special. It doesn't have the NVIDIA technologies or level of ray tracing performance, even though at this price point I wouldn't worry about ray tracing, to be honest, and that's why it's at my number 5. But if you end up buying this graphics card, it's not going to be the worst purchase decision in tech history or anything like that. It's just nothing special. Now, the next one, however, is a very bad purchase decision, and I'm talking about the RTX 4060 Ti 8GB version. This is a graphics card that has 8 gigs of VRAM for $400 USD. That's an outrageous price for an 8 gigs of VRAM graphics card. Now, usually when you spend between $200 to $300 USD, you can get away with having 8 gigs of VRAM depending on the game and the settings that you play. But spending $400 USD, you expect at least 12 gigs of VRAM from your GPU for you to have more room to play with if you want to play at 1440p high to ultra settings or 1080p in the latest demanding games. Because to be honest, the 4060 Ti has a really good level of gaming performance and is definitely capable of playing games at 1080p, even the high demanding games on ultra settings. But since you get 8 gigs of VRAM, that's not going to be a possibility with some of these games. That being said, instead you can get the RX 7700 XT, which goes for the same price at $400 USD. It has 12 gigs of VRAM, so you will have no issues when it comes to VRAM for 1080p and 1440p resolution, even if you want to play high to ultra settings in high demanding games. And on top of that, it's actually faster in terms of rasterized performance, about 15% faster on average. So you are getting a faster GPU for the same price with more VRAM. Now you can see why the 4060 Ti is terrible in terms of value. The next one is the RTX 3050, both the 8GB version and the 6GB version. The RTX 3050 8GB version goes for about $200 USD, and the 6GB version goes for around $170. Now, the reason why it's at my number 3 and not at my number 1 is because I can see why someone would buy the 6GB version if you have an old pre-built PC and you want a graphics card without a power connector. That's actually not too bad. And then the 3050 8GB version, even though I wouldn't recommend it and I think it's trash overall because of its price to performance, I mean, it doesn't have the worst worst level of gaming performance, and for 200 USD you still get 8 gigs of VRAM, so it's not like you will be getting the worst level of 1080p gaming performance. However, these are not good graphics cards, and for about the same price you can get the RX 6600, which goes for around 190 bucks, so it's cheaper than the 8GB version and will provide much faster performance than both versions of the 3050. And if you're willing to go Intel, you can go with the Intel Arc A750, which is actually even faster, and it goes for 190 bucks. So for a cheaper price compared to the 8GB version of the 3050, you are getting about 30% faster performance, or even more compared to the 3050 6GB version, which goes for around the same price anyway at 170 bucks for its cheapest model. So you're only spending 20 bucks more to get much better gaming performance. So whether you prefer AMD in the 6600 or Intel in the A750, both are much better value for gaming than the RTX 3050s. And also having 6 gigs of VRAM in 2025 is actually not ideal for just most games at 1080p resolution. Now, if you play esports games like Fortnite or if you play GTA 5, it's most likely not going to be an issue, but still you want to have at least 8 gigs of VRAM even at this price point. Now, the next graphics card that you should avoid is the RTX 3060 8GB version. This one goes for 250 bucks and it's a cut down version of the 3060 12GB. It has less VRAM and it's not like it's the same GPU, because for example the RTX 4060 Ti has two versions, in the 16GB version and the 8GB version, and both perform the same for gaming. The only difference is going to be the VRAM. No, in this case the 3060 8GB version is actually quite slower than the 3060 12GB version. That being said, the 12GB version is only about 25 USD more expensive because the 8GB version goes for 250 bucks. So the 12GB RTX 3060 is a much better buying decision than the 8GB one or the RTX 4060 if you have a bit of extra money to spend and you want even faster gaming performance and you don't really care about VRAM that much. Or once again, the best one will be the Intel Arc B580, but that one is out of stock everywhere. But again, if you can find it in stock at its MSRP, that one will be a much better option. And with the worst GPUs to buy in 2025, these are actually the same as the graphics cards I mentioned for the worst GPUs in 2024, and they are the RX 6500 XT or RX 6400. Both of these go for around 140 bucks, so the same price, and both of these have 4 gigs of VRAM. I would never recommend you buying a graphics card with 4 gigs of VRAM in 2025. That should be a crime. Now you might be thinking, well, yeah, but these are under 150 bucks, so they are quite cheap. Sure, they are cheap, but cheap doesn't necessarily mean good. Because for the same price, I do recommend you going for the used market and buying the RX 5700 XT, which is actually even slightly cheaper and it's going to provide with much better gaming performance, and you get 8 gigs of VRAM, which is going to be much better than 4 gigs of VRAM, especially at this price point. And if you're willing to spend a bit more, for 170 bucks, so $30 more, you can get the Intel Arc B580, which is much faster than both AMD GPUs, and it has 8 gigs of VRAM instead of 4 gigs of VRAM, and it's not from the used market, so here you are buying a brand new graphics card as well. Whatever you do, whether you go for the used market and spend about the same amount of money, or you want to spend a bit more and get the B580, those two graphics cards are a much better purchase decision than the RX 6400 or 6500 XT. Again, avoid these GPUs. The level of performance is really bad and both of them have low VRAM, so unless you want to play at 720p in Minecraft, then I just wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, remember that the graphics card alternatives I've mentioned today will be down below in the video description with the latest prices and availability. And on top of that, if you want personal PC help and you want me to help you out one-on-one by finding the right gaming PC for you, whether it's a pre-built PC or a PC build, that's going to be the top link in the description where I will help you out. Thank you for watching and I will see you on the next one. And I will link them